what's the real use case potential beyond just chatbots and co-pilots?
You said there's not a lot of noise around AI and end user computing, and I'm trying to change that.
Okay, what tasks now are human tasks, and you put those to one side. You need to differentiate those as current human tasks. And then you need to say, okay, so there's a new project emerging and we need to look into data analysis around this. That's when the AI topic really comes into play.
I think a lot about what's happening in the future and I get excited about things.
Yeah.
And then I'm sort of bummed that, oh my gosh, we have to wait. So why isn't ChatGPT 5 here? What about ChatGPT 6?
So today's episode is such a good one, we've actually had to split it into two parts. We're joined by Brian Madden, Citrix Futurist, and Stefan Stickley, our internal AI specialist, to discuss how AI is moving way past the chatbot stage and actually starting to change the way that we work. We're getting to things like self-prompting, AI agents working together, and new tech like MCP that actually makes it easier to plug into different tools. But it's not all about just the tech. We also touch on how this is showing in real workplaces, what it's doing for stress levels, and how people are starting to think differently about AI. Plus a few really cool examples actually of how these tools are already becoming part of everyday life. Enjoy. I mean, thank you both for taking the time out. I appreciate you're incredibly busy individuals, but first of all, I'm going to have to call the elephant in the room. Futurist. I mean, what a title. I'm jealous of that. How does that come about and what's involved in that?
It's a dream. I mean, this is a dream job for me and it's super fun. I think the Futurist, my role really at Citrix is more like a scout. So imagine sort of that scout you send way out there. Most of my time is focused on what's happening 5 years ahead. Within Citrix, of course, we have all our product managers. We have Sean Bass, our CTO, who's working on strategy. They're kind of really within our product groups and looking at our products and our direction and roadmaps and strategy and stuff. I do not live within our product group. So my role is to say, what is the world of end user computing and work going to look like in 5 years?
Yeah.
What's important in that world? What devices are we using? What applications are we using? What are the big issues? And then how does Citrix fit into that? And so I spend my whole day really sort of living in this future and then kind of walking it back to figure out, how we set our sort of long-term direction. And it's been a joy. I've been at Citrix just about 6 months. It's a super, super fun role and I really, really love it.
I love that. And I don't think we should underestimate quite how hard that must be as well. I mean, the rate at which AI is changing the workplace today is so quick that I can barely look 5 months ahead, let alone 5 years. So I kind of tip my hat off to you for that one.
Yeah, thanks. And we'll talk about this certainly on this podcast today. I mean, a lot of it is sort of, looking at different probabilities of different potential outcomes. Part of it is I think a lot about what's happening in the future and I get excited about things.
Yeah.
And then I'm sort of bummed that, oh my gosh, we have to wait. Why isn't ChatGPT 5 here? What about ChatGPT 6? So yeah,
I think I read through your post about the 7 steps of AI that you blogged, and you already seem to be right. If I'm honest with you, I mean, looking at it from, I gave it quite a good read, and I think we're at stage 4. I think from memory, where AI is now using our machines for us. That certainly seems like that's the bit that's coming for us quite quickly at the minute. And I'll do a shameless plug for you. If you haven't checked out Brian's 7-step forecast for AI, it is a great read on the Citrix website. So please do check that out.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, I'm blogging for Citrix, and that blog is great because what I'm writing about is truly the future of work and the future of knowledge work and how it's going to impact us. There's a lot of AI involved there. Of course, we'll get into that today. But my remit from Citrix is just go do your thing and write about what you think is important for our customers and our partners and our colleagues and everyone to think about. And the blog post you mentioned, assuming we can link to it in the comments here or something. I was having all these conversations about what the future of AI is going to look like and the future of work is going to look like, and everyone was talking about different things in different phases. So I said, look, let me just lay it out from kind of once ChatGPT came out, how are we using it? Just very simple questions, send a question, get an answer, and then kind of lay out the different phases of, okay, well, then we're going to use ChatGPT more deeply. Then AI agents are going to start kind of looking at your browser. We'll get into that more later, I'm sure. Microsoft just announced Copilot for Edge, which kind of co-browses with you. That was stage 3 in this thing. Stage 4 is computer using agents. Stage 5 is computer using agents that are using your device while using your workspace without even watching, probably running in the cloud, I would imagine. Then we get into AI orchestration and things like that as things go on. So it really helps frame the conversation and kind of let everyone have the same baseline for the conversations. And I think of all the blog posts I've done, that 7 stages of evolution of human AI collaboration is definitely my favorite one.
I love that. And it's interesting because speaking with some of our customers, I think there's a lot of fear now in the marketplace at the moment. Do you think that's a valid reaction?
I mean, fear and anger are the two most elemental of human emotions, right? AI is scary. I mean, I don't know, how is it for you guys? For me, before ChatGPT came out, when I thought about AI, it was like Skynet from Terminator. It was like that movie Her. It was like 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Yeah.
None of those really ended well for humans. Ex Machina. So the whole concept of hey, AI is real now and going to be entering our lives in a very meaningful way. I don't know, man. I don't know a lot of people who are just yay. So it's important to understand what it is, what it isn't, what's science fiction, but also a lot of things that were science fiction 5 years ago are real today. So I feel like people being scared, I get it.
Just a natural reaction almost.
Yeah. It's unknown. It's scary. And who's in charge? I mean, it's scary.
And so, Stefan, on your side, you're on the ground, you're in the coalface, so to speak. You're working with teams trying to bring AI into their workflows and into their organizations. What signs do you see that suggest we might be at an actual shift point, and it's not just another buzzword cycle?
Yeah. So what we're beginning to see really is businesses who are driving towards that AI frontier are beginning to ask themselves, not what can AI do today, but what can we build today so AI can do tomorrow? And it's a real challenging question. I mean, we ask it internally, customers come forward and ask, and we have to kind of reset the conversation, and we have to say, okay, you need to differentiate between what is a human task that will be human today and could create a job tomorrow that an AI can do, and what can an AI do for you today? And the fact that we're having those conversations is a real shift, because typically people have gone, okay, I'm going to need to hire somebody tomorrow to do this job. But instead, businesses are saying, okay, do I need to hire somebody tomorrow to do this job, or can this be automated? And I think that really sets a distinct change in the way that we as a society are beginning to look at new problems that are being created. And I think that shows that as people see these changes happen around them, and I mean, we do it day to day now. I mean, the active number of Google searches is on the decline, and the number of people questioning an AI over day-to-day questions. How do I make bread? How do I sew up my jeans? Can you give me a video that shows me how to sew up my jeans? Or even more so, can you generate me a picture of instructions on how to sew up my jeans? Talking a bit of history here for myself. But the fact that we can now take those general questions means that the zeitgeist towards the utilization of AI is beginning to shift. There was a time when people preferred a library over Google searching. Now, Googling is itself, the act of looking for information. And I think soon people will begin to change their approach to that. And with that, we will then see that change more so inside the workplace. And the fact that those conversations are happening today is, I think, the real turning point, because a year ago, people weren't asking those questions. Now, 6 months ago, the question started. Then a few months ago, more. And now it's almost a flood of every conversation I have starts with a problem, ends with AI.
Yeah. It's, you mentioned the automation. I mean, to me, this is kind of key, because IT has always been about automation, but there was always a lot of effort in building the automation. So you had to have a process that was you did often enough for it to be worth automating, and it had to be sort of simple enough that it was automatable, even if it was with robotic process automation or screen clicking or whatever. And part of the reason I wrote that 7-stage roadmap, that you were mentioning earlier, Chris, was because people are well, I get it what ChatGPT is today, or what LLMs. So I understand, hey, I send a prompt into Google and it just gives me an answer instead of giving me a list of blue links. okay, that's cool, but like, how do you tie that back into like automation and work? And that's what I kind of laid out in that roadmap, because the same LLM technologies that underpin products like ChatGPT or, you know, Microsoft Copilot or whatever, that kind of natural language thinking, you can also apply to your automation. So before, you had to make a script that said, you know, click on this box, wait for this dialog box to come up, click OK, then click next, push left arrow twice. And it had to be very specific, but it had to be specifically created by a human. And it's very brittle. If like a pop-up came up, it might, you know, get confused. And so, but now the LLMs that can do natural language, you can sort of tell it like, automate this task and go to LinkedIn, and like it can think through itself. LinkedIn, that's a website. I need a web browser. I see Chrome is here, but it's not active. Let me just Alt Tab and make that active. Okay, now I need to type in LinkedIn. Now click in the, like, it can do these things in reason. And so, like, you know, they're not yet at the reasoning level that they're sort of like replacing your jobs, but they're at the reasoning level where they can replace like your clickability. And so now you can say, find that post on LinkedIn about, you know, the 7 stages, and it can go do that. And so like that little link from, they output smart text to they can use that output text to give themselves instructions to do things, like that was the unlock where I'm like, whoa. And then click, and on where we go. And that's like how you kind of connect like that whole through line, which is changing. Like that to me is the inflection point that like starts to really change everything in our space right now.
Let me throw. Oh, sorry. Let me throw a question over to you, Brian. Okay, so we're now beginning to see. So previously, so over the last 6 months, you know, we've seen that you have to prompt to generate that automation still. But now what we're beginning to see is LLMs self-prompting with RAG and out of context modeling to be able to then say, okay, I need access to data A. I will now generate the tooling to generate data set A. And where do you really see the self-automation of this data collection falling into this? The fact that we're seeing things like NPC really play a part in querying AIs itself and naturally saying, okay, I need to learn how to query data set B now, and then being able to utilize those tool sets and going, okay, I'm now going to make a script. I'm now going to run this script inside a sandbox and access that data. I really see that myself falling into stage 4 and stage 5, but it's kind of happening without humans really getting involved. And I think that's a really key, scary, but fundamental part of this. Grok 4 recently was released without a coding toolset, coding CLI toolset. And prompted, though, it generated a full stack application to then do what Gemini, Coda with Copilot can do, Claude CLI. And I find that to be a crazy reality.
Yeah, man. So there's a bunch of really great questions in there to sort of unpack, because we should talk about that, like the tooling and the guardrails and the evolution and stuff. I think to your first of all, you know, LLMs like ChatGPT were famously bad at doing like symbolic reasoning. So that's like things with math and math operations and that kind of stuff. You know, they would just make it up. How many R's in the word strawberry is like the famous question, right? Yeah. And so, you know, what we saw about a year ago was, instead of trying to make the models like do this in their like token word brain, it's like, just, you have access to Python and these other tools. So like, I don't know, you can write a Python script that like counts the letters and adds them up and then does that. So now they'll use these tools a lot of times in the background. Some of them, when you're using them, you even see the little scripts that they write. So if you ask it anything about math or anything that needs to do with a tool, like, you're giving these things tools. And it's just kind of like human evolution, you know, from like critters running around to like, now they have tools, and it might be a sticker at first, but it gets better and better. And so, yeah, the tools are very, very powerful. This is kind of where it can be scary also, because a tool could be a command line and you don't want, you know, your LLM to type RM-RF or whatever, you know? So, you know, you still need guardrails and all this kind of stuff, but that's fine. You need guardrails around your humans and everything. But to get the point, so, you know, you mentioned MCP, Model Context Protocol. Like, an LLM by itself is kind of in a sandbox. It's like a really smart person, but you're only talking to them, and like, what else can you do?
Yeah.
The two protocols that came out, we've got A2A, which is agent to agent. Agent to agent allows two sort of chatbots or LLMs to sort of talk to each other, which it's a more sophisticated version of like those earlier memes you saw where you had like Copilot on one phone and ChatGPT on the other phone, and had them, like,
I
talking
never thought about it like that. That's brilliant.
There's a lot of funny videos of that. So of them like getting in loops and stuff. So so that's what agent to agent is. So that means like if my agent can't like figure it out, but there's another agent out there that can talk to each other, they talk like in English, because that's like English is the sort of commonality between them. And then there's also that MCP, that model context protocol. Model context protocol is like a universal API interface you can put on top of anything. I mean, it's being built into like data sources, databases like Box and Dropbox, file shares, GitHub, code things, and it really says like, it's like the old like hello. I mean, like an agent connects to an MCP server and is like, hello, and it's like, hi, I am a file database. I have a bunch of files. What would you like to find today? And it's like, oh, Brian is looking for a file about this. So it's kind of funny because it's like wrapped in JSON and some formatting, but it's really just kind of using plain English to connect. And you can use MCP to connect to tools too. It's like, I have a tool that can like tell you the astronomical path of this comet, and it's like, oh, I want to find out what it is on this date. And so the fact that like we sort of realized that hey, humans use tools. I mean, even the human brain, like you don't have one brain that's used for like everything always. Like there's a different areas of your brain for like thinking and math and like being afraid and all that kind of stuff. So these language models are growing in the same way, where it's like a network of experts instead of like one giant model. And these experts they talk to don't have to be within that same model. They can be in other models. So much like humans and like communities of humans and tools, the AI models are kind of following that same path. And that's like that's something we're starting to see now. To your point, Stefan, like on that roadmap that I created, I kind of felt like the stage 6 is once you start to get to like multi-agent communication. So that's where I'm gonna say like, hey, to my AI, like get me the show notes from Chris, and it's like, okay, maybe it'll scan my inbox and it doesn't see them. They can look at my calendar and it's like, oh, I have a podcast tomorrow, and oh, there's a guy named Chris Haynes who's hosting, and here's his email address. I will contact him. Maybe it drops you an email. Maybe your agent picks it up on your inbox and is like, oh, and can put it together. And this whole transaction can happen without us being involved. So like we're kind of getting there now. Like that, the early versions of that and by the way, it's early now. So fully implemented, I guess, in like 6 months. I mean, it's moving so fast.
Yeah. And so this is going to tie more into your background. You said earlier on, NPCs are showing up in Dropbox and all these other applications. And so really, vendors are already beginning to provide people, enterprises, individuals with the tooling to make the most of AI today, just not necessarily in that agentic format. And I think that, going back to what Chris asked, like, what are our customers asking? Well, the answer to most of their questions is, do your vendors support MPC now?
MCP.
MCP, model context protocol.
Context protocol.
Yes,
yeah.
MCP.
Gosh, there's so much that goes into this. I mean, AI agents is what people are talking about. The word agent means a lot of things to, everyone's got their own definition.
Yeah.
Broadly speaking, it's like some kind of software task with some AI smarts in some way on it that is sort of able to run without you like sitting there like driving it every step of the way. I mean, you could almost say that like something like ChatGPT Deep Research is an agent, because I ask Deep Research for something, I can close my browser tab and it's going off and like finding sources and compiling the report. And if you have the ChatGPT app on your phone with notifications, it'll just ping you on a notification like, oh, your report's ready. So that's like an agent of a type. There's, I've been writing a lot recently about computer using agents, which is a different topic, but like agents that can actually look at your computer screen. So they can, you run a little like software code on your laptop and it can actually like observe the pixels and like kind of take screenshots and process those, and then like operate the mouse and the keyboard. That's what like these agents, like, OpenAI agent, for example, that runs in a remote browser interface. So with OpenAI agent, I mean, you can, if you have OpenAI, I don't know if it's only their paid subscription, but you can click the agent button and say, like, I'm flying to, this place in 2 months, please find the best flight. And you'll see it open a browser, click around, it'll go through and like scan things for you. So agents also have different tools, right? Like some of them can use browsers or use webs. Some of them can write their own code. Some of them can talk to, are able to discover, like we talked about these MCP, like servers, like these model context protocol interfaces on like Dropbox and these kinds of things. You can imagine like a repository or a directory. It's like Yahoo back in the day of like, here's all these MCP servers and the agent can connect and ping. And it's like, hey, I'm the agent operating on behalf of this worker. What do you have? And it's like, I have files. What are you looking for? And off they go. So it's like, there's so many different angles that this is coming together. And there's like various levels of applicability sort of into the business world. And it's just, it's an exciting time. I mean, there's a lot we have to be careful about, but like in terms of like raw innovation that's happening in our world of like knowledge work and end user computing, boy, this is the most exciting time. I've been working 31 years and this is the most exciting time in this industry for sure.
I love that. And it's interesting what you just said about all of what you just said actually about, AI is fundamentally everywhere. But if we bring that back to end user compute, it doesn't really seem to be anywhere in that space really yet. There's not a lot of noise in our area. And there's things that we can be doing, like, productivity in IT support. We're talking about, log-on storms and session crashes, root cause analysis that the guys spend hours and hours looking at. All of that seems like it can be automated and hopefully one day offloaded into, agentics or AI. So when we say AI in EUC, and acronyms galore today, what should that even mean? What's the real use case potential beyond just chatbots and co-pilots?
This... you said there's not a lot of noise around AI and end user computing, and I'm trying to change that. So check out my blog, futurists.com/blog. It's definitely, so, I think to Chris's point about a question about what AI means in EUC, the background that you're setting up, Stefan, is like, I'm an EUC guy. I'm not an AI guy. AI, like I said, I mean, sure, I knew like Terminator and stuff, but it wasn't until ChatGPT. Actually, I do a lot of coding just in my personal life. And so I started using GitHub Copilot, probably in, I don't know, 2020 or 21, whenever that came out. And it got better and better. And it got to the point where I was like pretty blown away. So once ChatGPT came out, that was exciting. But it, 6 months I'm using it. It's like little like nonsense things at first, but it kind of got more and more like legit in terms of how I was using it. And eventually I was like, this is going to kind of impact things in our world. Because, in the world of end user computing, I was always sort of focused on the leading edge of end user computing. I mean, I would argue that like Citrix, I got involved with Citrix in the 1990s. That was like pretty cutting edge, VDI, enterprise mobility, like SaaS browser apps versus Windows desktops, working from anywhere, the consumerization of IT. Like I've always kind of been in the moment of like what's happening in EUC. And so to me, AI is part of that. Like it's the thing now happening in EUC. Like I didn't get into AI for AI's sake or through the lens of AI. I got into the lens of EUC, and then AI is coming in and I'm like, whoa, this is whoa. So for me, and so to answer your question specifically, Chris, so what does AI mean for end user computing? Obviously the term AI means different things for different people. There's a lot of, so you use the example of like co-pilots or like doing like log analysis and root cause analysis. I think that's a huge use for end user computing. But interestingly, that mainly only affects like administrators and IT professionals. So that's important. Like every product that we use is going to have AI in it, right? Like, like Citrix has a Citrix Copilot. We're just previewing that right now. You can chat with it to understand issues and root cause. There's Microsoft Copilot in all the Office suites and all their back office products, like Adobe. Like everything's got AI in it. That's great. It's important. It's good. I'm excited about it. Not what I care about, because that to me is just like the latest technology. That's like, oh, I got the same products. Now they're on mobile. Now they're on web. Now they're on SaaS. Now I have to pay for it as a service. Now it's got AI. That's just continuing that thing. That's not fundamentally transforming the way that knowledge work happens. Same with the AI that is added into applications that companies build. A lot of companies are like, oh, we need an AI strategy. can unpack that later if you want. And the CEO goes to the CIO and says, we need an AI strategy. And the CIO is like, well, AI today's chatbot. So I guess we can like make a chatbot. And I like, again, this is applications that IT are building. Yeah, they're going to help certain areas here and there and like business, operational type areas. But again, that's not changing things. To me, I mean, if you think about knowledge work, think about work in general. I mean, we look at over the last centuries, how sort of like task work has been massively disrupted and transformed based on technology, going back to, steam power and electric power and like looms and automations and all the way to, robots and cashiers and, self-checkouts and things like that. The technology over centuries has really impacted task work, like labor, when you're exchanging labor for money. What's now is AI is sort of, we exchange like our intelligence or our brain power. Like, I sit any job that's a KVM job. So that's a job you can do like via keyboard, video, and mouse, which we found out after COVID, there's a lot. You can kind of do like right here. Like the idea is any job that really is just done through a computer probably can be disrupted by AI. Not today, but like it's in play now. And so, for knowledge work to be the target of disruption of AI, that's new to all of us. And it's in that area where I really look at where AI's impact is. So it's not like copilots or agents on the back end, they're helping the admins. It's like every single rank and file knowledge worker who sits at a cubicle and does TPS reports every day. They are now in play to be majorly disrupted. And so what I study and what I was doing, like on that talk where I first met you, Stefan, the work that brought me into Citrix and why I joined Citrix and the things I'm looking at Citrix and the problems we're solving there are all based on the ultimate end users, the ultimate end workers. So like my role and my perspective, I don't focus on the Citrix admins, but rather I focus on their users and their workers. And because knowledge work, I mean, all organizations today are built around human workers, and they're built around the constraints of human workers. So like the constraints of humans, I mean, humans are like messy and biased and like have feelings and emotions. And there's like companies are based on like shadow applications and like tribal knowledge and long email threads and process maps and approvals and all this work that's done that matters and doesn't matter. And there's these serendipitous connections, like all of that is what really makes like a organization today function from the knowledge worker standpoint. And when you start getting AI into that world, that's when things really, really become disrupted and transformed. And for AI to enter that world, it has to, that's a world that already exists. So AI has to like fit into that world in the way that world exists. And I use the example as like, it's like humanoid robots. Like why are humanoid robots shaped like they are? They're shaped like humans because, if you have a task worker robot, make it like the task. It's a robot arm. It's a little like Roomba. It's a checkout counter, whatever. And these are task robots. They only do one thing. If you have a general purpose robot, like a general purpose worker, that's a knowledge worker, it has to look like a human. So it can do everything. Because, if I wanted to iron or drill or vacuum, like I have an iron, I have a drill, I have a vacuum. Like make yourself about, 6 feet tall, give yourself some fingers and like use the tools I already have. So taking that analogy into the world of knowledge work, where do I work today? I've got a Mac laptop. I'm using Chrome. I've got Google Workspace. I've got, I don't know, like Workday. I've got these tasks. I've got emails. I've got meetings. I've got podcasts. I've got all these things. We need the AI to come into that world and use the same tools that we use. So this isn't about a new AI that, I'm going to build this new AI process and it's going to talk to this API and this API and this MCP and like do all the stuff in a black box in the cloud. That's not where we work today. That's like saying, I'm going to take all my existing desktop applications and turn them into SaaS apps, which that's been like 25 years in progress and it's still happening because you can't just like lift and shift everything to totally new way just overnight. It's the same with AI in the work world. So AI coming into our world and, bit by bit, drip, 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 like today I'm questioned. Today I'm chatting with it like I chat with a coworker. Tomorrow I'm asking it to look at my browser. The next day I'm having it go like do an expense report for me. The next day I'm having it do a strategy, build show notes, whatever that is. The AI entering our world of how we work to me, is the real story about AI in end user computing. And that means we need to provide AI with the same tools and processes and applications that we provide to humans. Because fundamentally, a human is a worker. We're getting to the point where AI is a worker. And from the IT standpoint, there's not much real difference. Like, do I care if my workers are AIs or humans? I mean, in the broader scheme of company design, yes, we care very much. But I'm saying, like, from a pure IT standpoint, if I have a desktop or a workspace that has all my apps and my identity and my context, and it's all kind of bundled together and ready to go, then a worker connects. I think a AI worker ought to be able to connect to that in the exact same way a human worker connects to that. And so when I look at the impact of AI on EUC, I'm looking at our workers now, who for my whole career were only humans, are no longer only humans. We have AI workers, we have human workers, we have augmented human workers. And this is kind of more of like this any strategy that we've been doing for 30 years within end user computing. Any device, any application, anywhere, any connection, now like any worker. It's just another. So that's actually good for a lot of ways, because it means like we don't have to fundamentally transform like everything we know about end user computing. I don't think AI changes like that much about what we do as end user computing. We still need guardrails and limits and security and logins and IDs and all that kind of stuff. It's just now sometimes our workers are AI workers instead of human workers.
So that's part 1 done. Keep an eye out for part 2, where we're going to be digging into what it's really like when AI becomes a co-worker, how it fits into your systems, how IT can manage it, and what changes when AI is just another member of the team.